So this is going to be your quick tutorial on electricity, just trying to make it clearer and more visual. So electricity, we need to know current as our flow of electrons. We need to know voltage as the push causing the electrons to move. And we need to know resistance is how hard it is for electrons to flow. Okay, so those are our three definitions: current, our flow of electron; voltage, the push causing the electrons to move; and then resistance, how hard it is for the electrons to flow. So first of all, we're going to start with a series circuit. So it's going to have one loop. So this one here is a series circuit. Has one loop. So if I had my battery here, okay, and my electrons are moving through my wire, that is what I call my flow. Okay, so the current is the flow of the electrons around the circuit. So if I want to say it in a different way, I can say current is how many electrons pass this point in a certain number of time. Okay, so that is a rate. It's the flow of our electrons moving around and how many of them pass this point. So if I put my ammeter in here, it's how many of them pass that point in a certain time. Now, the voltage is the amount of push that they have. So from our battery, they're all going to get this amount of push. So those lines are representing the push that each one has. Now, they all have 3 lines of push. Okay, that push has to be shared amongst the components. So if I go over here and I've got my bulbs, that push has to be shared. So if this is my voltmeter here and it's 10 volts, the push of these has to be shared between each one. Okay, each bulb has resistance because it is got a small thin wire, so now it's harder for the electrons to flow. If they have the same resistance, they're going to get the same amount of push from each electron. So this one is going to get 1.5 pushes, so that's 10, half of 10 is 5. This one here is also going to be the same resistance, it's got that same narrow filament, so it's going to get 1.5 pushes, so that is 5 volts as well. Okay? Whereas, if we have our parallel circuit, and our parallel circuit has 2 or more loops, this is where our current comes down, and now it has a choice. It can either go this way or it can go this way. So we're going to get half going one way and half going the other. However, the electrons that are flowing are all going to have the same amount of push. So even though they've gone this way, they still have the same amount of push as the ones up here. So what that means is the current splits, but the voltage stays the same. So if we go to this one here, if I put an ammeter in here and say that this is 10, an ammeter here, this one would be 5. But if I have a voltmeter and this is 10, the voltmeter here would read 10, and the voltmeter here would read 10. The bulbs have the same resistance, but they're getting the same push as the battery because the voltage on these electrons is the same. If I added another loop on and I had 2 bulbs, they would then share the voltage that comes to that loop, so they would have 5 each. So in that case it's the same as the series circuit, but it's on the end of a parallel. So each loop in a parallel, the components have to add up to the battery. In a series circuit, the voltage is shared amongst the components. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments.